What's up, Math 1? If you didn't know already, this is Mr. Bainey, and today's lesson is 6.2 point slope form. The essential question is how can you represent a linear function in a way that reveals its slope and the point on its graph? So let me backtrack to lesson 6.1. If you recall, we worked with a form called the slope-intercept form. And this form was very helpful to us because it revealed the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, it is called slope-intercept form. So it doesn't tell us the x-intercept. That one's a little bit trickier to find in this form, but the y-intercept is revealed. And remember that it is in the form y equals mx plus b. We're able to write any linear function or linear equation in this form as long as we know the slope and the y-intercept. And so you can start to think about why today's form is called point slope form. So this explore activity is going to give us some some information as to how this point slope form came to be, how we derive it, but we're going to skip that and we'll go straight to what it looks like here. So in this box labeled point slope form, if we know any slope m and we know any point, right, this is any point, then we can write this equation, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And from there, we can graph it. We can move some things around, right? Do stuff to both sides of the equation and make it look like the point slope-intercept form, or put it into standard form if you remember what that looks like. Okay, so let's look at an example. Your turn, number 3, is we're going to write an equation in point slope form for each of the lines. So the slope is 6 and the point 1, 2 is on the line. So if you remember, the point slope form looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so we know from number 3 that the slope is 6, so that's m, and then that the point is 1, 2. So we're going to label our point x1 and y1. And now it's just a matter of plugging this in correctly. So if you look up here, y1 is 2, m is 6, and x1 is 1. So I'm not going to touch x and y. X and y represents the all the points or all of our solutions for this linear equation. So my equation is going to be y minus 2 equals 6 times x minus 1. And that's all you have to do for this, because this is point slope form. I could distribute the 6, I could add 2 to both sides, and if I did that, it would actually look like the slope-intercept form, but we're not going to worry about that quite yet. So go ahead and try number 4, and then go and pause the video and resume when you're ready to see the answer. Okay, the slope is 1/3. -3 is my x1 and 1 is my y1. Okay, x comma y. And so my linear equation is y minus 1 equals 1/3 times x minus -3. So a lot of the mistakes with this are going to happen with those negatives. So what you could do is, if it's a negative, you could just put x plus 3. And it's the same thing. So x minus -3 or x plus 3 are both acceptable. The x plus 3 is definitely the preferred way to write it. And let's move on to the next example. Okay, so now we're going to work with a word problem and be able to write the equation in point slope form. Daisy purchases a gym membership. She pays a sign-up fee and a monthly fee of $11. After 4 months, she's paid a total of $59. Use a linear equation in point slope form to find the sign-up fee. So we don't know what this sign-up fee is. She pays a sign-up fee. The monthly fee is $11. But it does tell us that at 4 months, or after 4 months, she's paid $59. So you can think of if the months is your independent variable, right? That's our X. And then the cost, the total paid, is our dependent variable. Then the 4 months and $59 really is represented by this coordinate, this ordered pair right here. So 4 comma 59 is one of the solutions to this linear equation. I know that my slope is 11 because that's the monthly fee. Okay, so the tricky thing with these word problems is can you figure out what a point is? Sometimes the point is the y-intercept, sometimes it's a point that isn't the y-intercept, and can you identify what the slope is? And if you can identify any of those, you can write the equation. So 4 is my x coordinate, so I'm going to call it x1, and 59 is my y coordinate, that's my y1. And I know what my slope is. So slope-intercept form, it's point slope form. Y minus 59 equals 11 times x minus 4. So I actually am going to go ahead and figure this out by distributing the 11 first. So I'm going to get 11x minus 44. And then to get y by itself, I'm going to add 59 to both sides. And when I add 59, I'm going to get y equals 11x plus 15. So now think about what this means. This is now slope-intercept form. Okay, it looks just like y equals mx plus b. So if you remember, the sign-up fee for when this is 0 months tells us, or we can actually get that from the slope-intercept form, and it is right here. So we can now say that the sign-up fee is $15. Okay. And lastly, we are going to look at, or I'm sorry, I think we might have another example after these two. Number 8, your turn. We're going to write the equation in point slope form for each line. So both number 8 and number 9 are very similar in that we're going to find the slope first. So to find the slope, we are going to use the slope formula. So I'm going to call this x1 and y1, and the second one x2 and y2. So my slope formula is I'm going to subtract the y's, 1 minus 4, and subtract the x's, 3 minus 2. So I get negative 3 over 1, which is just negative 3. And so once I know my slope, I'm just going to choose a point. You can choose any point. It's going to come out to the same thing anyway, or they're equivalent. So I'm going to choose, I'm going to use this slope, and I'm going to use this point. Since I've already labeled it x1 and y1, that makes it pretty easy in that I just put y minus 4 equals negative 3, remember that's my slope, times x minus 2. Okay, go to try number 9. So this one is a special type of line, if you notice while trying to work on it. And we have x1, y1, and x2, y2 so that we can calculate our slope. Subtract my y's, 1 minus 1, and I get 1 minus 1 and then 1 minus 0. That's 0 over 1. And 0 divided by any number is 0. And I'm going to use a point. So let's say I use this first point, and the slope, my equation is y minus 1 equals 0 times x minus 0. And this 0 on the outside of the parentheses actually gets rid of that whole side. So we're going to end up with, you could just write y I'm sorry, it would be y minus 1 equals 0. And in that case, if you wanted to add 1 to both sides, you would get y equals 1. So y equals 1 is actually a horizontal line at y equals 1. And you can try that out for yourself if you would like to see how that looks, because you will be expected to know how to graph horizontal and vertical lines, and they end up with these slopes that are either 0 or undefined. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to look at is these word problems again. We're going to use the point slope form to help us figure out these problems. So number 10, a gas station has a customer loyalty program. The graph shows the amount Y dollars that 2 members paid for X gallons of gas. Using the equation and point slope form to find the amount a member would pay for 22 gallons of gas. So we do have a graph here on the right side. The amount of gallons is our independent variable on the bottom. All right, that's our X. And the cost is our dependent variable. So the first thing that we need to do to find a point slope form is to find our slope. So I'm going to find out how much does this thing rise. Okay, this is going all the way back to lesson 5.3, right? Knowing how to find slope on a graph. So how much am I going up and how much am I going to the right? Well, I'm going up from 10. This is from 10 all the way up to 49. So how much does that go up? It goes up by 39. That's my rise. Okay, and then it's going over to the right. If I look at these numbers on the bottom here, it goes from 5 gallons, right, all the way to 18. So that means the run is 13. So my slope is 39 over 13. You could use a slope formula as well if you're comfortable with that, but this is another way. So 3 is our slope, and that really means $3 per gallon. And then our Y-intercept is a little bit tricky here. Oh, you know what? We don't need to find Y-intercept. I just need to use a point. So I'm going to use that point that I circled in blue and this slope, and I'm going to get y minus 10 equals 3 times x minus 5. So I want to know, I want to find the amount a member would pay for 22 gallons of gas. So think about 22 gallons. Is 22 my x or my y? And so it ends up being 22 is my x. So that is going to be plugged in right here in my point slope form. So I'm going to have y minus 10 equals 3 times 22 minus 5. And then I just solve this for y. So I get y minus 10 equals 3 times, what is that, 17? So I'm going to do 2 steps here in one because I'm running out of space. 3 times 17, this is going to give me 51. And then I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I'm going to get y equals 61. So that means this is going to be $61 for 22 gallons of gas. Okay, go ahead and try number 11. It's the last problem of the lesson. And remember to use slope-intercept form. So we have 10 skaters cost $107 and 15 skaters cost $137. So X is going to be the number of skaters and Y is going to be the cost because the cost depends on the number of skaters. So that means our points are 10, 107, right? 10 skaters cost $107 and 15, 137. So I'm going to use those 2 point values to calculate our slope. So I'll end up doing 137 minus 107. That's my change in y. Divided by 15 minus 10. So that's 30 over 5, which is 6. This means it's going to be $6 per skater. And there's definitely going to probably be some, there's going to be some sort of initial fee attached to this as well. So once I know my slope, I'm going to use one of the points. Let's use the one with the smaller numbers. And then I'm going to write my point slope form. Y minus 107 equals 6 times x minus 10. And I want to know how much would a party cost for 12 skaters. So for 12 skaters, skaters is represented by the x coordinate, or the x variable. So that means I'm going to replace the x by 12 and copy everything else. Y minus 107 equals 6 times 12 minus 10. So I'm going to continue up here on the right side. I get y minus 107 equals 6 times 2. And then finally, I will add 107 to both sides. And I will get 119. So this should make sense because 12 skaters, if 10 skaters cost 107, 15 skaters cost $137. 12 skaters should cost somewhere in between those. And that's what we ended up with, $119. So it seems like a reasonable answer. So finally, I'm going to write this in a sentence here, or in a phrase. $119 for 12 skaters. And I have now answered the question. Okay, and that's it for this lesson 6.2. Thanks for watching and have a great day.